Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much again for tuning in this week. My guest today, his name is Adam Khayat. He is a very, very special person. He studies medicine at the University of Louisville. He studies biology right now. But there is something special to him, everyone, and I encourage you to listen closely to this message. He is a very, very smart person. He is, in my mind, an extreme intellectual, and he is also very involved with the conflict in Syria right now. Being a first generation American from a Syrian family, uh, this episode is obviously very important to him and to me as well, because I believe that we need to educate ourselves. When I speak with Adam today, unfortunately, we are inside of a Quill's coffee shop when we're doing it, so the quality of the episode might not sound superb, but his take on the entire situation will no doubt blow your mind. I encourage you all to listen very closely because with polarizing subjects like this happening across America, I think it's important for us to be able to sit down and to dissect a situation in a simple conversation and not to formulate our own opinions, but be willing to be educated. And Adam does that for me. He tells me so many things about the conflict that I had no idea what was going on out there, and it was something that was very eye-opening. That it was just a lot more than meets the eye, apparently, obviously. So, before we get into that, though, I do need to make a couple of announcements. Okay, our sponsors this week are Maple Morning Farms and the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot. Maple Morning Farms is a farm located out in Crestwood that specializes in farm fresh eggs and produce. And the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot is located on Highway 146 out in Crestwood, and they specialize in lawn maintenance and floristry. Basically, kind of self-explanatory. They have the best products and the best flowers to decorate your home and to make it look pretty. If you want to go out there and you want to have a conversation with the owner, Steve Bowen, he has been the owner of the Crestwood Feed and Seed Depot for the last 30 years, and he knows everything there is to know about taking care of your lawn. So, with that being said, please give them a visit because they know how to do it. Also, we have a new sponsor. Very happy to announce that. The new sponsor is Pearson Funeral Home. Pearson Funeral Home is located out in St. Matthews. They are a family-owned establishment, and they always have an owner there to assist with any funeral home, with any funeral. How do you say that? Just with any funeral in general, with any funeral arrangements, with any funeral that takes place, with any funeral services at all. They are there to help. They have the largest chapel in Louisville. They have high quality service as given by several different reviews. Their services are traditional, and we know how some people like traditional funeral services. That is very important. They have cremation services. That is also very important, so you don't have to outsource the cremation services to somebody else. They do it for you. They value your investment. Plain and simple. They value your investment, they value your time, and they value your relationship because they know that it is always hard to lose a loved one. Losing a loved one is always too soon. And truth is, they understand that, and they want to make it a very, very good experience for you. They want to give you the best funeral possible. They want to give the proper burial to that loved one, and they understand that. They take it seriously. It's Pearson Funeral Home. Pearson Funeral Home is located on 149 Breckenridge Lane, Louisville, Kentucky, 40207. And their phone number, if you want to contact them, is 502-896-0349. They will meet you where you are, and they will help you out with whatever you need. There you go. Other announcements for this podcast: if you want to engage in the podcast at all, if you have any suggestions on who I need to reach out to and speak to, if you have any questions about any episodes, if you want to give feedback, plain and simple, you can reach me on social media on George Shadburn for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can reach me at all of those platforms. Also, you can just comment on the podcast. You can comment on the podcast on georgeshadburn.com. You can comment on the podcast on YouTube and Vimeo and Google Play and, did I say iTunes? I think I did. Those are the 4 platforms that we are on, and Vimeo is not up and running yet, but soon enough those will be the 4 platforms that we will be functioning on, and you are free to listen on any of those platforms. I encourage you to. Actually, the best way that you can help me is to follow and subscribe to those platforms, because that is how this show keeps growing. And if you guys want the show to keep growing, by all means, please, 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 please subscribe. Also, if you want to help any of the organizations, charities, ministries, nonprofits, what have you, that are represented on this podcast, I would ask that you go to my Patreon page, which is a donation page that I've created, that you can give a monthly donation to, whether it's $1, $5, $10 a month. But on a monthly basis, I will be making a video that will show me making a donation from that Patreon page to those organizations that you found to be interesting or good causes. Again, none of that money goes to me whatsoever. It's just simply a way for me to help the audience get off their butt and into the game. You know? Because I believe in helping people. I know you guys believe in helping people. This is a good way to help some people. And this is kind of something that'll help you get in it. So yeah. All right. Anyways, here is the episode with me and Adam Khayat, and please listen closely, because he's got something to teach you as he taught me. Thank you for listening.
Hey everybody, I got a special guest with me today. His name is Adam Khayat. He goes to the University of Louisville, and he is studying medicine, correct?
Biology.
Biology?
Yes.
Is that pre-med?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Adam did a fundraiser for a few families in Syria, and I wanted to give him a chance to talk about that. Last time I saw him was a couple months ago, but I wanted to give him the chance to kind of tell you guys about the project that he was working on with that, and if anybody wants to get involved, to just give y'all a chance to get involved. So Adam, talk a little bit about yourself.
So as you said, I'm a student, and I was involved with a project called Sweat for Syria earlier in May. We began planning it in December of last year, and the basic goal, the objective, was to raise $10,000 via a race for 4 Syrian refugee families here in the community.
Yeah.
It's not well known, but Louisville is a vibrant community when it comes to the refugee and immigrant demographic.
Okay.
We're actually one of the largest hubs for immigrants and refugees in the region.
Okay.
And that's reflected by Kentucky Refugee Ministries and the fantastic work that they do. So me and a couple others, we got to work seeing how could we enrich the lives of those who have underwent so much struggle and obviously the destruction of their homeland. How could we benefit their lives? And so we decided to do this race, and we, thankfully succeeded in raising more than $10,000.
Fantastic.
And was able to distribute the money appropriately
Yep.
via Kentucky Refugee Ministries.
Okay, cool.
And hopefully we want to perpetuate this project in the coming years and see
Yeah.
what can come from it. As of now, we're still kind of in the works. But yeah.
Cool, cool. Do you plan on doing more of those in the future?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay.
That's the plan. And see if we could also focus on other issues beyond the issue of Syria as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, struggle and war and conflict is universal.
Yeah.
So being able to help any person or any group of people
Absolutely.
would be amazing.
Cool. Well, I was curious to learn a little bit more about that, but you also have some kind of personal ties to it and everything. Your family is from where again?
From Syria.
From Syria,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I think the last time we talked, am I correct, are you a first-generation American?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I was born here.
Yep.
First in my family to be born here. Yes.
Cool, cool. You know, not a lot of people get to talk with somebody who's got some personal ties to the conflict that's going on in Syria right now. I wanted to get your take on everything and just, I don't know, like I just kind of wanted to ask is, you know, from one millennial to another, how do you think we got here?
The conflict.
Yeah, I mean, just with all of it, because it seems like it's all escalating so quickly, but it's, you know, I don't know enough about it to say, you know, how did this happen?
No, it's you know, oftentimes our media is saturated with images of what's going on in Syria.
Yeah.
But it does not provide the context.
Yeah.
The progression of the conflict itself.
Right.
So of course, yeah. I mean, so just to begin, it began in 2011 in May,
Yeah.
and it was within the milieu of the Arab Spring at the time.
Yeah.
And as many know, during that time, many people were collecting together and
Yeah.
protesting the dictatorships of various countries. And this
Okay.
includes Egypt, Libya. And so what resulted in the case of Syria was an armed conflict because
Yeah.
you kind of have to look at the history of Syria itself, right?
Mhm.
So Syria is a very nascent country.
Yeah.
It's not more than 70 years old. So after World War II,
Mhm.
many of the European colonial nations
Yeah.
removed themselves from that imperial environment.
Yeah.
And this followed 40 years of colonial and imperial rule in the Middle East.
Okay.
So in 1917, in Europe, there was the Sykes-Picot Agreement.
Okay.
And so that essentially led to the division of the Middle East according to the borders we know today.
Yeah.
But in addition to that, it put various sects of the Middle East under spheres of influence, under European powers,
Okay.
for obvious resources
Yep. Yep.
and access to ports and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so after World War II, in the case of Syria,
Yeah.
the French were forced to remove their colonial outposts and
Yeah.
their control over Syria. And so,
Yeah.
ergo, Syrians were forced to construct their own nationality, but their own country as well. And so, the first 20 or 30 years were really marked by consistent political upheavals
Yeah.
and coups.
Yeah.
And this obviously is a trend and phenomenon that's not indigenous to Syria.
Right.
Any new country goes through its growing pains, and obviously even in
Absolutely.
the States we have the same trend in our history. So,
Yeah.
and then in the 1970s you had the an Assad famine. So we know the current dictator to be Bashar al-Assad.
Yeah.
His father was Hafiz, and so he got power in the 70s, and he was able to really unite the military under his control, and he established a state that sort of did not facilitate opposing viewpoints or perspectives.
It kind of they blocked out other ideas almost.
Almost, yeah. And that was the case for decades until his son coming into power. For example, in the 80s, there was the Hama massacre. There's a city in Syria named Hama, and there was a potential uprising. It did not really come to fruition, did not actualize. But the response of Hafiz was to conduct a scorched earth operation to the deaths of thousands. And for me personally, 19 on my mother's side alone was killed in that massacre. So that really, in the mind, in the collective conscious of the people of Syria, left a mark. And so in 2011, when people began to protest for the implementation of a democratic reform, and the response was from the military, then the civil war essentially broke out and came to manifest as we know it today. Now, obviously, it's much more complex. There are many moving parts. So you have many foreign countries who have their hands in the country, who are really galvanizing the input of weapons into the region. And so anytime you have the influx of weapons into a region, it's bound to really augment the flames of the war, if that makes any sense. And ultimately that leads to the continuation of conflict. And so what we can see now currently is that Iran and Russia, and primarily those two, are supporting Bashar, whereas Turkey, before a couple years ago, would be the U.S. And other countries as well, were supporting the opposition. And it was really just a pinnacle of geopolitical warfare. It wasn't really just the regime against the people, but it was many different parties involved. And it led to further fragmentation when it came to the opposition. And ultimately now what we see is Bashar al-Assad taking control. He is currently launching an offensive against Idlib, which is the last rebel stronghold. And to be frank, I expect in the coming months that Bashar will have the control of the country. And so, I mean that's pretty much it in a nutshell. But obviously, it's important to contextualize the conflict and the history of the region, the history of other countries' involvement in the country. Moreover, it's always good to never paint this conflict in a very dichotomous manner. It's a continuum. There are many moving parts. When it comes to who is wrong, who is right, who bears the fault, anybody who picks a weapon, in my mind, perpetuates warfare, and I think that is wrong. So I see
it's too complicated to be black and white.
Exactly. So and I just recommend people to perhaps look into their history, research the politics, and get a better understanding of that when they see these images on the news media.
Well, so that's my thing right now, and that's of course why I wanted to talk to you. It's such a hot button issue over here now because, I mean, for one, whatever opinion you have on the immigration policies and whatnot, the fact of the matter is there is, in your mind, what you just said, a lot of moving parts that are going on in Syria and in the Middle East, and it's too complicated to just say one way is the absolute correct way. There's got to be a little bit more in-depth look and a little bit more education on the matter, and that's something that, like, you're giving to me right now. I'm not getting that from the media. I'm not getting that from social media or something like that. I'm having to ask you, and that's important. But I want to ask you then, since you said there's a lot of moving parts, in your opinion, what can be done over there to at least begin the resolution of conflict, and then what can be done over here by maybe our generation or even by the country of the United States to in your mind, help out in any way? Because
Yeah.
I know the sponsoring of the families is a huge deal. It makes a difference for those individual families, but something else has got to change.
Of course, yeah. Good question. Obviously, it's a big question as well.
Right, right.
My answer, I'll try to answer it, but of course, there are no guarantees
No,
of
right,
the
right.
correct answer. But
Of
my
course.
conception of what to do is twofold. It's what we can do here in our country and what we can do there. So
Yeah.
personally, I'm not a big fan of foreign military intervention.
Yeah.
Actually, let me be clear. I don't want us to be militarily involved in Syria
Okay.
as the United States.
Yep.
And the reason for that is multifold. I think that would lead to the perpetuation of more warfare, and it would put American citizens, soldiers at
Yeah.
risk. And also from the perspective of Syrians, you know, if we look at the Iraq War, we notice that right now Iraq is in shambles, and so
Devastated. They're
many,
devastated.
for example, even John McCain, but other political members as well, were keen to say later on in the conflict that it was a mistake overall.
Yeah.
So to be militarily involved in Syria would put human lives at stake,
Yeah.
both American and Syrian.
Yeah.
But what we can do, especially now that the conflict is slowly but surely being resolved,
Yeah.
is to support economic infrastructure there. Obviously, many industries have been decimated, and so it would take many years for them to return to what they had been before the conflict. But with the right funding and guidance,
Yeah.
we can play a pivotal role in the reconstruction of cities, of different sects of the economy, and that will lead to a tangible effect on the lives of Syrians overall in Syria.
Yeah.
Now, from the perspective of what we can do domestically,
Yeah.
is to support those coming from such conflictual areas.
Yeah.
So, in Kentucky, for example, the Kentucky Refugee Ministries, my understanding is that there is approximately 90 days to attain self-sufficiency.
Okay.
And that means finding a job, getting better understanding of the language. Now, if you've traveled abroad, you would know that is very difficult to be self-sufficient in a foreign
To
country.
get a job and to learn a completely new language.
It's very
crazy.
difficult.
Yeah.
And not only that, but they're bringing with them emotional baggage and what
Yep.
they went through.
And they probably left behind family members too.
Exactly.
They're
exactly.
homesick or some way. Yeah.
Exactly, precisely. So, most important thing is to really build an inclusive environment to get to know thy neighbor, right?
Yeah.
And not only adopting that mentality on a personal note, but also on an institutional note.
Yeah.
Providing opportunities for refugees and immigrants to flourish economically, and to get to know also from their perspective their fellow Americans and their fellow neighbors.
Yep.
And by doing such, by building such bridges, it's bound to lead to a burgeoning social environment of inclusivity, tolerance, and that really reflects the core ideals of this country. So.
Yeah. I completely agree with you there, and I think one of the things that I noticed when I was in Catania, Sicily last year, and I was working with West African refugees coming up from Libya, which is a failed state, and they were coming in left and right, and they were just trying to find a new place, and the problem is that even though the Catania was the last supported port by the United Nations, I could see the coldness of the environment from the Sicilians there. And my friend Andrea, when we were there together, she was like, "This is like 1950s America. Like, this is insane."
Mhm.
And it's it's in my mind, it's just a lack of education on certain people groups and certain ideas and everything. And I wanted to ask you, as a young first generation, how do you say it, Syrian, just Syrian, right? What are some challenges that you say, or that you can say that you and your family may have faced as far as being a first generation American that you would want simply anybody to know about that somebody just might not pick up on or understand?
No, I guess to answer that question, you said something that was key, and it was the factor of ignorance when it comes to negative relations and the treatment that, in your experience, Libyan refugees had. Ultimately, my advice for those who are dealing with first-generation immigrants or immigrants in general or refugees is to have the willingness to have a conversation on a personal level. Because really taking the time to just meet the other person really leads to the deconstruction of many negative hegemonies. Many people, their perspectives and perceptions are predicated on secondary institutions of knowledge. So that could be the media, that could be wherever they get the information from, but rarely is it from an actual person.
Exactly.
Because when you actually observe the humanity of another individual face to face, all those stereotypes or negative perspectives kind of fall to the wayside.
And it's all in my mind, people, when they're watching television, they love to see drama and stuff, right? So what happens? The media buys into that, and then what they want people to see on the media is drama of a negative kind. People, in my mind, like to get angry, and I'm sitting there and thinking, our country's polarizing on a lot of different issues. Somebody has got to sit down and have a conversation that is from the other side of the street and say, look, talk to me about this, because all I'm seeing on the television is nothing but hatred or anger of some kind, or just plain old misconceptions. I want to hear it from you, and I want to understand. But so I'm sorry for cutting you off, but continue with what you're saying.
That was an extension of what I was saying. And we're fed this narrative of the nation being in a very polarized state. But I think it's important to understand the degree to which we're taught that we live in a polarized society is not reflective of reality. Ultimately, we do things together on a day-to-day basis.
We go to the same school.
We abide by a social contract. We come together, meet in a coffee shop, and have a conversation. This happens every day. And so when people really disseminate that narrative of fractures in society, perhaps there are ideological differences, but these entrenched fractures aren't as pronounced as they seem. And that really begins with, as you said before, having a simple conversation.
Absolutely. That's cool. That's a good thing to know, that that there are a lot of people out there, especially in our generation, that understand that there may be ideological differences. We may not share the same views on certain subjects, but the only way to get to the next page is by having a conversation, by meeting with one another. That's why I even started this podcast, is because I like to talk to people about things that I don't know about, or things that I might not agree with in some way, and then I get to learn something new, or they get to learn something new, and then we get to move forward in that area. Another question I wanted to ask was, oh shoot, I forgot my question. Well, here, let me ask this question. I'm going to do some rapid fire questions, and then we'll wrap it up, because I'm going to have to get going here in a little bit. But I do want to thank you for coming on my podcast. I really do appreciate it. Very insightful. What is your favorite book as an individual?
I would say Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man is
Seriously?
one of my favorites.
Okay.
Have you read it before?
I have not had the chance to. I know about it, though.
Yeah, it's a fantastic book for so many reasons. for me, it really began or catalyzed my interest in existentialist humanism as a philosophical movement. But also, it gave me a nuanced picture of identity, what it means to carry an identity. And in that book specifically, it's from the perspective of an African American in, I believe, 1930s America.
Wow.
Or after that, I forget. But nonetheless, it really focuses on the importance of constructing an identity in my eyes. But also, contextualizing that within a society and holding true to.
Cool. What is your favorite music?
Favorite music?
Or if you have a favorite artist or song? Any of those.
So, I was a big fan. I'm still a big fan of 90s hip hop. So old school hip hop.
Nice.
I'm not in tune too much with the new trends, but there are certain artists that I still listen to. J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar. I enjoy them. But 90s hip hop, Fugees, Lauryn Hill.
Man.
Tribe Called Quest. So.
I think I listen to Lauryn Hill every day, though, to be honest, in my car just driving around. She's awesome.
She's fantastic,
Cool. What is your favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Or top 3, if you can choose a favorite movie.
Good question. I really enjoy the Batman trilogy. So
Wait. Like the most recent one, right?
Most recent one, with Christian
Bale.
Bale and the music score by Hans Zimmerman. I studied to that music, and it's fantastic.
I want to say, as far as DC comic goes, I think that's the best they'll ever get right now. Did you see do you watch any of the DC movies right now?
I watched one, and it was so bad.
So, they're falling apart. Because, for one, Ben Affleck is Batman, and that's a mistake. But two, Henry Cavill, who is Superman, just dropped his contract. So they're not making any more of the Superman movies with him. So it's a complete shambles. But I definitely agree with you on that. Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy was absolutely incredible. Cool. What is the best piece of advice you ever got growing up? Or is just something that you live by?
I guess something that I live by is it was an epiphany I had early in my, middle of high school. And it was, if I'm to quote it, is embrace the gentle indifference of this world and do what you can. Because for me, we're always striving to affect change in our communities. And we want to affect change not only in our communities but on a global scale. But it's important to understand that we are individuals. We are only one person. I'm talking about myself. I am only one person. And it's important to maintain humility in my goals and understand that there are limitations to what I can do, but nonetheless, I should always strive to do what I can, knowing full well that although I'll never achieve the grand change, because that occurs gradually with small actions committed by many people, although that will never happen when me achieving a grand change, by doing small actions every day, they'll accumulate and lead to some difference in my community.
Do you think our generation's losing sight of that?
I see examples of, yes, there are times when I say, well, we are losing sight of that. But there are also other times when I say, no, we're not losing sight of that. So it's this duplicity I'm seeing. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, I mean, I think I've seen it. I think I've seen it both ways. I think I see more of the forgetfulness of being able to do that than I see people, sticking with it of some kind. There was a kid that wanted to do a bake sale and raise money for a village in Kenya, right? He was just going to sell some cookies and he was going to just see what happens. And he kind of had that mindset. He's like, you're just one person, but you can control what you do and everything. but he stuck with it for like 4 months, and he ended up raising enough money to build a hospital in Kenya.
Wow.
He built a hospital out of cupcakes, essentially, right?
Wow.
But on a daily basis, at least in my church, I go to a mega church, Southeast, and it's a wonderful church, but all the time I am seeing I'm seeing people put God in a box as far as like wanting to kind of mold their lives around trying to make the world a better place. Instead, they're playing it safe and playing it close to the chest and aiming for comfort instead. They're saying, not what can I do for God in this world, but what can God do for me? Because I am a young individual who needs to get married and have a beautiful family and a nice car and go to college, get a degree, and that's it. That's what I'm supposed to do. But I think people are losing sight of, like what you just said, that there are some people out there that do want to make the world a better place. And I think that some people get so ambitious that they bite off more than they can chew.
Yeah.
And then they get down on themselves, and then they settle into some sort of easy thing because they had it feel like kicked out of them in some way. But no, yeah, I'm right there with you though. That's a good mantra to live by.
Yeah.
For sure. If you could give the audience a piece of advice of any kind, or if you would want them to know anything about yourself, about your family, or about your community, what would you want them to know?
My best piece of advice would be to actually engage with perspectives and ideas that are antithetical to your own.
Right.
And what inspires me to say that is, if you look at the tradition of philosophy and you look back to Hegel and his the famous Hegel's dialectic, you have the synthesis and you have the thesis, the antithesis, and when they meet, when these contradictive ideas meet, you have synthesis, the creation of new ideas. And you mentioned that earlier when you had these conversations. So when you meet people with differing ideas, and you have an authentic intellectual or spiritual conversation, you're bound to grow as a human being. So when it comes to people from different backgrounds, whether that be socioeconomic, political, or cultural, the willingness to explore their histories and talk about that with them, or talk about differing ideas with them, is bound to lead to growth. And that to me is of the utmost importance. And that to me is why we are here.
That's
on a metaphysical plane.
That's what our country at least should be built on. At least, I'm right there with you. Cool. Well, dude, one more time, it's Kentucky Refugee Ministries, correct? Is there a website?
Oh, for the fundraiser and
for the fundraiser and for anything else that if you do that again, or if they get that kickstarted in any way, how can the audience get involved?
Most definitely. It's Sweat for Syria, and the 4 is a number. So Sweat, as it's usually spelled, the number 4, and then Syria.com.
Sweat for Syria.
Yeah, we'll be having information posted on there. And in addition to that, there will be an email service. I believe if you register on the website, you'll receive emails. Although the race has passed, it was in May, we hope to do future events, and it would most likely be announced on that website.
Cool. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being on the podcast. You are an amazing intellectual, and I definitely want you on for more episodes, because we definitely got more to talk about for sure.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Everyone, I will post the website and information on the podcast post if you guys want to get involved in any way. There's a lot to be learned from this podcast. Thank you guys for listening, and tune in next week. Thank you.